I used to run a roadside motel off Route 60 in Kentucky, a tired, two-story thing with flickering signage and a mosquito problem we could never quite solve. My name's Rick, and back in the 90s, before the chain hotels swallowed everything, folks still stayed in places like mine. We weren't fancy, but we were clean. We had 12 rooms, 6 on the ground floor, 6 up top. Room 11 was the one on the far end. Back corner, the least used. Folks didn't like it. Too dark. Too far from the front office. The AC rattled like a dying fan, and the bathroom smelled faintly of mildew no matter how many times we bleached the tile. The night I still dream about, a woman specifically asked for room 11. It was late. Maybe 10:45. I remember because I was watching Letterman, and Dave had just finished roasting a guy with a haircut that looked like a mop. I almost didn't hear the bell ring over the hum of the ice machine outside. She was tall, thin, dressed in a navy blue coat, even though it was summer and the air was heavy with humidity. Her hair was pulled back tight, and her eyes, well, they didn't blink much. She didn't smile, didn't give a name. "One night," she said. "Cash." She slid a $100 bill across the counter. The room only cost $38 with tax. I asked if she needed change, and she shook her head. Then she said, "Room 11, please." I paused. "You sure? 11's got a finicky lock. AC's spotty. 10's just been cleaned and—" "11," she repeated. Her voice was steady, calm, but final. That's when I noticed the girl behind her. Couldn't have been older than 9. Thin like the woman, but smaller. She wore a red t-shirt and jean shorts. She held her hands together, tucked beneath her shirt like she was cold or scared. She never looked up, just stared at the floor. I handed over the key, and they walked off into the dark. Didn't ask for towels, didn't come back for ice, didn't call down for Wi-Fi, not that we had it back then. The only time I saw movement was around 1 a.m., when the curtain in room 11 shifted, just slightly, like someone peeking through it. Then, nothing. They were gone by sunrise. At first, I figured they'd left early. Lots of folks did that. But when I went to check the room, the door was unlocked, bed untouched, lights off, and the girl's shoes were still sitting neatly on the floor. Small, pink, with little white flowers on the toes. I should have called someone then, but I didn't. I just shut the door, locked it, and went back to the office. That was my first mistake. Room 11 stayed empty for a few days after that. Not because I was spooked, at least that's what I told myself, but because I couldn't bring myself to reset it. I kept the Do Not Disturb sign on the knob and told housekeeping to skip it. Said it needed a deep cleaning, which wasn't entirely untrue. On the 3rd day, I grabbed my master key and headed down with a fresh set of sheets and a vacuum. The shoes were still there, untouched, like someone had placed them with intention. They were too clean, too neatly lined up. I'd checked the lost and found book, the registry, even asked around at the gas station next door. Nobody reported anything missing. Nobody reported anyone missing either. I made the bed, cleaned the mirror, changed the towels. Last thing I did was open the drawer under the TV, the kind where we used to keep the Gideon Bible. That's when I saw it. A folded piece of lined notebook paper, yellowed a little around the edges, like it had been there longer than it should have. I unfolded it. Written in a child's hand, jagged, nervous pencil strokes, were 5 words. "Do not trust the lady." That's all. No name, no date, just that message. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at the paper. It didn't make sense. The girl barely moved when I saw her. She hadn't looked up, hadn't said a word. But this note, it felt like a whisper left behind in panic. I kept it, put it in my shirt pocket, finished cleaning, and tried to move on. Then that night, the phone rang. Line 1, the one we used for front desk calls only. "Room 11, the voice said. Software mail. Unfamiliar. Is it open? I cleared my throat. Sir, do you mean you want to book the room? Pause. Is it open? He repeated. I checked the board. All rooms were vacant. No one had checked in all day. Yes, it's empty tonight. Another pause, a breath. Keep it that way. Click. He hung up. And I swear to you, swear on my mother's grave. When I stepped outside to take a breath, room 11's curtain shifted again, same as it had that first night, like someone was inside, watching. After that phone call, I didn't sleep much. I left the TV on all night, volume low, just enough to cover up the creaks and pops of the old building settling. Every time a gust of wind rattled the siding, I jolted upright. The next morning, I made coffee strong enough to wake the dead and pulled out the old reservation ledgers from the back office. I figured if something weird was going on with room 11, there might be a pattern. We didn't have computers back then. Everything was handwritten. Names, dates, license plate numbers, sometimes even little notes in the margins. I kept them all in banker's boxes under the desk, stacked next to the spare bulbs and roach spray. I started with the current year. Nothing odd. Then 1994. Still nothing. But when I opened the book from 1982, July to be exact, I found something that stopped me cold. Room 11 had been booked for 10 straight nights. The name listed, Mrs. Linda Beckett. Same handwriting each day, same license plate. I didn't recognize the name, but in the margin of July 9th, someone had scribbled, child crying, room 11, again. It wasn't my handwriting. Probably one of the college kids I'd hired that summer. I vaguely remembered a kid named Billy working the night shift back then, but he moved to Arizona sometime after. I flipped through the rest of the book. Linda Beckett's entry stopped suddenly on July 11th. No checkout noted, no payment processed, just a blank space. And then, a faint smudge on the next page, in the corner. Looked like a bloody fingerprint. I closed the ledger, walked straight over to room 11 with the key in hand. The shoes were gone. I know how that sounds. I know I didn't move them. No one had access but me. I'd locked the room, double-checked it after cleaning, and left it untouched since. But they were gone. In their place, sitting dead center on the freshly made bed, was something I hadn't seen in over a decade. A Gideon Bible, open to the book of Exodus, and underlined in red ink was one sentence, "And the child shall be taken from her." I backed out slowly, locked the door, and went straight to the sheriff's office. But the moment I mentioned the name Linda Beckett, the deputy behind the desk froze. "You sure that's who checked in?" he asked. I didn't see her myself. This was back in '82. Why? He looked around like someone might be listening. Then he leaned in and said, "Rick, Linda Beckett was a missing person case. A big one. She and her daughter vanished from Tennessee in 1982. Cops thought it was a runaway case, until her husband turned up dead in a drainage ditch outside Knoxville. Throat cut, no suspects." I felt my stomach drop. "No one ever found her?" The deputy shook his head. "Not her, not the kid, not even the car." I thanked him and left. But before I did, I asked one last question. "Did they ever find where she stayed?" He paused. "Number just rumors. One said she holed up in some backwoods motel near Route 60. I left the sheriff's office with a million thoughts and a tightness in my chest I hadn't felt since my dad died. Linda Beckett, missing since '82. Tied to a murder, maybe running from something or someone. And now, over a decade later, I'd found her name in my ledger. In my room 11. I kept thinking about the girl, the note in the drawer. Do not trust the lady. I hadn't told the deputy about that, or the shoes, or the call. I should have, maybe. But some part of me didn't want to share this anymore. It had started to feel personal. That night, just after sunset, a package showed up at the front desk. No return address, no postage. Just a brown paper bag folded tight with a strip of masking tape. And across the top, in shaky handwriting, Room 11. I thought maybe someone dropped it off without me seeing. The front desk bell hadn't rung, but I wasn't always paying attention. Sometimes I'd be in the back doing laundry or restocking towels. I opened it. Inside was a Polaroid. A blurry photo of Room 11's bed, but not recent. This was old, yellowed at the edges, like it had been in someone's attic for a while. On the bed lay what looked like a stuffed rabbit, and next to it, a little girl's shoe, the same style as the pair that vanished days earlier. On the back, someone had written, "She left this behind." The other one stayed. I turned off the lights in the office and walked to Room 11, stood outside for a full minute, staring at the door. Then I unlocked it and stepped inside. No smell, no sounds. Just the low hum of the mini fridge and that soft electric buzz that motels have when everything's too quiet. I checked the drawer again. Bible gone. Checked under the bed. Nothing. Then I noticed the air vent above the dresser, slightly ajar. I dragged a chair over and unscrewed the grate. Inside, wrapped in an old dish towel, was a second Polaroid. This one was different. It was of a mirror, the one in the bathroom. You could see a girl standing in the doorway behind the photographer, head tilted like she was trying to understand what was happening. But the person taking the photo, they weren't visible. No hands, no camera, no reflection at all. Just empty space. Like the photo had been taken by someone who wasn't there. And suddenly I felt it. That thick, heavy dread crawling up the back of my neck. Like someone was watching me. I turned around fast. Nothing. But the curtain, the same one I'd seen move before, was swaying gently even though the window was shut. That's when the phone rang. The front desk line. I ran back. "Room 11. The same voice whispered. "It remembers." Click. The next morning, I did what any sane person would do. I decided to shut down Room 11 permanently. I told myself it was about the mildew, about the creaky pipes, about liability. But the truth? I was scared of the room. There was a feeling I couldn't shake, like it was using me, feeding me pieces of a puzzle I hadn't asked for, and I didn't want to be part of it anymore. I went to the hardware store and bought a heavy-duty padlock and a roll of caution tape, pried the hinges off the door, screwed in new brackets, locked it up tight. Then I tacked up a sign, "Out of order, do not enter." I even unplugged the mini fridge. That night, I sat behind the front desk and cracked a beer, something I hadn't done in years while on shift. Letterman wasn't on anymore. But I had the radio low, some old Patsy Cline coming through static. And for the first time in weeks, I felt calm. Until around midnight. That's when I heard the bell ring. I hadn't heard it all evening. No new guests, nobody on the lot. The parking spaces were all empty except for my old Chevy. I stepped into the lobby. No one was there. But the door to the side lot, the one that led down the row of rooms, was wide open. And pinned to the corkboard behind the desk was a third Polaroid, thumbtacked where the rate sheet used to be. This one showed room 11. The new padlock was broken, hanging by a single twisted screw. The caution tape was gone. I grabbed my flashlight and walked the row, trying to stay calm. It was dead quiet, the kind of country night silence that makes your heartbeat feel loud in your ears. When I reached room 11, I stopped. The door was open, not kicked in, not forced, just slightly ajar, like someone was expecting me. Inside, the lights were off, but the smell was back. Not mildew, not bleach, old perfume. Faint, sweet, familiar. And from inside the bathroom, water was running. I stepped in slowly. The floor creaked under my boots. I crossed the room and placed my hand on the bathroom door. The water stopped. Then, a child's voice, soft, raspy, whispered, "She said you'd come." I threw the door open. Nothing, just the mirror, steam on the glass, no one inside. The sink still dripping, but scrawled into the fog on the mirror were the words, "Room 11 remembers you." I didn't open room 11 again after that. Didn't clean it, didn't touch it. I didn't even walk past it if I could help it. I kept the doors shut with a chain from the inside and piled up boxes in front of it, as if that would matter. But I couldn't let it go. The Polaroids, the voice on the phone, the girl with her hands under her shirt. And now, messages written in steam. Whatever was happening wasn't just about ghosts or bad memories. It felt like something unfinished was reaching out through that room and using me to finish it. So I started asking questions. I tracked down old guests through the ledgers. Most numbers were disconnected or useless. But after a week of trying, I reached a woman named Sandra Heller, who had stayed here in June of 1982, just weeks before Linda Beckett's name appeared. She was in her 70s now, living in Indiana. When I told her I was the current owner and was researching some of the motel's history, she hesitated, then asked, "Is this about that little girl?" I felt my throat tighten. "You remember her?" "You don't forget a kid like that," she said. Sandra told me she'd stayed 2 nights while driving cross-country. Her room had been right next to room 11. The woman, the mother, I guess, was strange. She never spoke to anyone. I saw her at the vending machine one night, and she wouldn't even make eye contact. But it was the girl she remembered most. She stood at the window for hours, Sandra said. Didn't move, just stared out like she was waiting for someone. Then she got quiet. Her hands, Sandra added after a pause, always under her shirt or in her pockets, even when it was 90 degrees out. I thought maybe she was shy or had some kind of injury. I asked if anything happened during her stay. That's when her voice dropped. There was a noise, a scream, I think. Came from room 11 around 2 a.m. Second night I was there. I went to the front desk, but the night manager said not to worry, that it was a TV left on too loud. I asked if she remembered the manager's name. Billy, maybe? Young guy. Looked tired. Kept watching the road like he expected someone. Then she said something that chilled me to the bone. The girl, she waved at me when I left. Just stood there, one hand raised, staring through the glass. But her hand wasn't right. What do you mean? It looked burned or broken, wrapped in gauze maybe. She kept it under her shirt most of the time, but that morning it was visible. Sandra sighed like she was trying to push the image away. It was twisted, like someone had hurt her real bad and no one ever fixed it. I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat there for a long time, staring at the motel key rack. Room 11's hook was empty, but beneath it, on the desk, even though I hadn't been in that room for days, was a child's handprint. Small, greasy, smudged in dust, fingers spread, and a smear of red beside it, like the start of another note never finished. The next morning, I drove to the county records office. I told myself it was about old employee forms, something innocent. But deep down, I was trying to find out what happened to Billy, the night clerk Sandra mentioned. I hadn't thought about him in years. He was 19 back then. Stringy hair, worked weekends, always had a sketch pad in his back pocket. Quiet kid. Never caused trouble. But after the summer of '82, he vanished. I figured he'd gone off to college or moved west, like most kids did once they saved up enough gas money. I found the old personnel file in a water-damaged box labeled Employee, March to December 1982. Most of it was paperwork, W-4s, time cards, a barely legible emergency contact. But in the back of the folder was something I didn't expect. A letter, never mailed. It was addressed to manager or future manager in Billy's handwriting. I unfolded it carefully. If you're reading this, then room 11 hasn't been shut down like I asked. I've already gone. I won't be back. Not after what I saw. The girl's name was Melody. The woman said she was her daughter, but I'm not so sure. The girl never called her Mom. Just followed orders. She always looked afraid. One night, Melody came to the front desk. She didn't say anything. Just placed a piece of paper in front of me, folded into a triangle. Before I could open it, the woman came in, grabbed her arm, and took her away. The next morning, I found the note still under the desk drawer. It said one word: help. I called the sheriff's office. Told them I thought something bad was going on in room 11. They said they'd send someone. No one ever came. Next night, I went to check the room. It was empty. Both of them gone. The only thing left was a photograph under the pillow. The letter didn't describe the photo, just ended with this: if room 11 is still open, close it. Burn it down if you have to. That room is a wound, and it's not healing. I left the records office with a stomach full of cement. Drove back to the motel in silence. When I got there, the answering machine was blinking. Just one message. I hit play. A girl's voice came through the speaker. Distant, like she was calling from the bottom of a well. You kept the room open. Click. That was it. No name, no number, just that. I didn't sleep that night. I sat behind the front desk, watching the hallway monitor, just static lines and the occasional flicker. The motel felt different, still, like it was holding its breath. At 2:13 a.m., I saw it. Room 11's light clicked on. I hadn't touched the breaker. The room was supposed to be dead, unplugged, chained shut, blocked off. But there it was on the monitor, that dull yellow glow pushing against the curtains like a lantern in fog. I grabbed my flashlight, and the key I said I'd never use again. The hallway outside the rooms was eerily silent, the kind of quiet that presses in on your ears. Crickets had stopped. Even the cicadas had gone mute. When I reached room 11, I saw that the chain I'd installed was snapped. Not cut, snapped, like something had yanked it from the inside. The door was open, just slightly. Inside, the air was warmer than usual. Not stifling, just lived in. There was no sign of dust, no mildew. Everything looked cleaner than it ever had. And on the bed sat Melody's shoes, the same pink ones with the white flowers, neatly placed, side by side. Next to them, a photograph, face down. I picked it up. It was Melody, maybe age 9, holding a paper triangle and smiling nervously. Behind her, a woman, Linda Beckett, stood in a kitchen I didn't recognize, her hands on the girl's shoulders, her mouth tight, her eyes dead. There was writing on the back of the photo, in pencil, shaky. "My name is Melody. If you find this, I got away. But I'm not free." Suddenly, the bathroom door creaked open behind me. I turned. Nothing. But written in steam across the mirror, like breath had summoned the words again, was a final message. "You were supposed to help." I stepped back, heart pounding. That's when the floor creaked. A girl, barefoot, pale, stood in the hallway behind me, looking into the room. She wasn't solid, more like smoke trapped in glass. But her face, it was Melody's. Not scared anymore, just tired. She looked up at me, raised one hand, the one she always kept hidden, and opened it. In her palm was the missing triangular note. She didn't hand it to me, just opened her fingers slowly and let it fall. By the time it hit the ground, she was gone. I picked up the paper. It was old, yellowed, folded exactly like Billy had described, inside written in the same jagged, trembling hand. She wasn't my mother. I closed the motel a month later, sold it to a developer who wanted to build a self-storage facility. I never told him about Room 11. Never told anyone, really. Just left the key on the desk and drove west until the sun dipped behind the pines. But sometimes at night, in cheap motels across Texas or run-down diners off the highway, I'll hear a payphone ring that no one answers, and I'll think of Melody, of her shoes, of that room, still remembering, still waiting. Thank you for spending this time with me. If you enjoyed the story, give it a like and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one.